This podcast is proudly sponsored by the Catholic Order of Foresters, a Catholic fraternal benefit society dedicated to helping members achieve financial security through life insurance while supporting the Catholic community through fraternal outreach. Hey, welcome back to Ever Ancient, Ever New. Your host, Jeremy Darling, once again with Father Kyle Kowalczyk, plumbing the depths of the beauty of the Christian faith once again here. Very excited about our conversation today.
Yeah, it's always good. It just gets my mind rolling throughout the week and the day. Like, what's the Lord been doing that's new, right? He's always doing something new.
Yeah, that's a great way to meditate and focus our thoughts during the week. I compare it a little bit to confession as I'm rolling through. How have I behaved in my home? How have I behaved with my kids? How have I behaved around people in my private life? Lord, where's my heart at? And how am I dealing with sin in holy living? And these conversations have kind of a similar effect on me, trying to think and pay more attention as I'm reading scripture and prayer or listening in Mass of what the Lord is doing or what He's showing me, because it's, of course, this lifelong journey, this adventure that we're on of knowing Jesus Christ until we see Him face to face. And I wonder sometimes if I'll remember any of the questions
Oh, right, yeah.
that I had that didn't get answered on this side.
We won't care anymore.
So you and I both had a pretty major connection through theater.
Yeah,
And that's actually why we met,
yeah.
through Father Paul Haverstock in 2019. I think we went over this a bit in our inaugural episode. But it's interesting because you are a playwright. You've also done some acting.
Yeah.
I'm an actor who's starting now to dabble in playwriting. I think I've written 2 sort of short plays this year and some other stuff. But I enjoy writing, and it's, I think, a great process for actors. But art, to me, is probably one of the biggest things that drew me into the Catholic Church.
Oh, yeah.
Because I found all this beautiful stuff that I missed through the ages.
Well, and I mean, this is to me is like one of the things that's like so, it's so upsetting that it's been so lost. Like great art used to be synonymous with Catholicism.
It did,
right?
yeah.
Like nobody goes to Rome without going to see good Catholic stuff that Catholic artists made, you know?
That's true.
Like Michelangelo, Raphael, like all these guys, Bernini. I mean, these Catholic stuff that Catholics made.
Yep.
You know?
It's a defining part or piece of the Catholic tradition is art through the ages. And I have these conversations with other friends in other denominations, and that's really what always comes down to with me. Like, take me back and show me a great Calvinist painter. Show me a great Baptist sculptor. That it's not even a thing.
Yeah.
Now, that's not a knock on them. They're great Calvinists and Baptists and love Jesus Christ, okay? But there's the draw to art seems to be almost exclusive to Catholicism.
It's incarnational. You know,
Correct.
I mean, this is what Catholics have had from the very beginning. They're like, no, Jesus came in the flesh, and now, even though there's a prohibition of making, images that, would make
graven images.
Right. It's like now it's like, no, let's make tons of images. Because this is how we process, this is how we think and mull, and you get beautiful, like I'm pondering Jesus and what he looked like in this moment, and so I'm gonna make a painting about it.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's just what we do. And so Catholicism has always had that, like, no, let's make images, whether with words or with paint or with sculptures. Let's put our faith, let's incarnate our own faith and our own processing of our faith into marble and oil and ink.
Stone. I mean, why would the question, of course, is why would God give us anyone great talents in art if He did not want Himself glorified through that in some way? I told a friend once who was struggling with the idea of art and should we look at pictures of Jesus, which to me seemed wild, but in some other denominations, they have such a desire to honor God that they're scared that they might look at something in the real world and see that as higher than God. So I can kind of get that process. And so I asked her, I said, she had children, I said, if your child came up to you and had drawn a picture of you and said, Mommy, here, this is for you, I love you, you're my favorite mommy, would you crumple that picture up and throw it away and say, "Don't ever draw me"? I'm not God. You can't do that. Well,
I mean,
of
I
course
don't
not.
I don't have any kids, but I'd think probably not.
Okay, so my kid comes up and does that. I see in that their desire to show their dad that they love him and that they wanted to make something for him to show that. And that is what art is. God's given us these great talents. We give them back to him by creating music and song or paintings or sculptures that honor him in some way. And you find most I don't know a lot of Christians that are against visible art. They don't seem to have a problem with music, but the eye, it comes of course into the eye is very important. And I've just found that imagery has had such a tremendous effect on my prayer life, focusing my mind on a specific time, even though of course I wasn't there at the nativity, right? I wasn't there at the crucifixion, but I was always trying to do that, when I would sing these songs. I was trying to picture this moment of what he looked like and bringing it into the world, incarnating, taking something that's invisible and making it visible in some way.
Yeah, and I mean this is what the Chosen guy is doing.
Yeah.
Jordan Dallas Jenkins, this
Yep.
is what he's doing. He's taking like his meditations and study, and he's like, I want to put this on the screen and see what it looks like, see what it does, see how it touches me and others, and
Yeah, and then trust God and the Holy Spirit to.
yeah. So it is. I mean, that's beautiful art. He's doing beautiful art.
He really is.
And yeah. I would say that like actually my conversion actually had to do with theater, writing in particular, and so I got into writing back in high school. It was the first time I was in a theater class, and we had to do a little project, and we had to write something, and I found that A, I was really good at it, and B, I really liked it. And so that was my junior year of high school. Well, by my senior year of high school, I decided that I was going to write, produce, direct, and act in a full production.
Whoa, that's a big leap.
Nobody had ever done this at my school before, So my senior year, I did this. I pulled it off, Well, let's jump back a little bit, and this is another story for another time. But when I was in 8th and 9th grade, I was getting in all sorts of trouble in school. I mean, I'm getting detentions, I'm getting suspensions, I'm getting kicked out of school, I'm getting arrested. I mean, like all sorts of.
I didn't know any of this.
Yeah. Let's look. This isn't on, right? We're not recording right now.
No, of course not.
All sorts of stuff. But then, like, 2 years later, 3 years, 4 years later, I pull off a full production, directing my peers. Like everything.
Wow.
Right. And it wasn't like a great moment of like Christian theater or anything like this. And it's like the stuff I wrote was actually kind of garbage. But like that I pulled something off like that is actually a feat that just dazzles the imagination. And when I look back and knowing who I had been and what kind of bum I was and what kind of trouble I had been in, I'm like, how did I do that?
Huh.
I had a reunion with my high school theater teacher, drama director back a couple of years ago, and I said to her, Lori, because I can call her first name now that she's not.
Oh
my
yeah.
teacher.
Oh, that's nice.
I said, Lori, how did you even why did you even let me do that? It was insane. She was like, I saw some potential in you.
Wow.
But here's the thing.
That's a good teacher.
Yeah, yeah. And here's the thing that I realized many years later, this kind of connection that I was reading this book by Lajos Egri, which is, I don't know what nationality that is. I don't even know if I'm pronouncing the name right, but
That sounds about right.
Yeah. And he wrote on the art of writing, plays in particular. And the very beginning of his book starts off with something like this. He says, every human being has the innate desire and even need to create something.
Yeah.
And if he doesn't use that to create something beautiful, he will inevitably create something else, like chaos.
Wow.
And I read that, I'm like, that was me. I'm creating chaos. Finally, I'm introduced to something that like taps into, my God-given creative desires and need, and like everything changed.
Wow.
Like, so that for me was like the beginning of my conversion. And then I'd say much later in life, then I started to actually use that gift for His glory.
Huh.
You know, but that was huge for me.
Wow. You didn't just write plays, you were also writing music. I mean, the first play I did with you was a musical.
Yeah.
So you have stories, characters, songs, musicals. For those of you that might not be privy to the writing process, writing a musical is a whole other part of the brain.
Yeah.
In addition to that, and you got some people around you, I know, to
Right.
help. But it was, I mean, the experience there was transformative for me to be around other Christians, and in this case Catholic, because I think the whole cast was Catholic. Well, I had not been received into the church, ironically.
you weren't
I mean, it
Catholic.
was professing, but it wasn't official. It was such a transformative experience for me to be around people that really loved Jesus, that were fun to be around.
And that was what we were trying to create too. It's like, wait, why do the arts like belong to the pagans?
I know, it makes no sense to me.
You know, because you've been in the theater world, and
Yep.
it's really hard to find somewhere where, hey, I can tell people that I believe.
Yeah.
I can tell people that, you know, I don't necessarily support same-sex marriage.
Yeah.
You know, and they're not going to crucify me.
And I had just come. It was even more transformative because I had just come off of a really bad experience at a big theater in a town which shall not be named, at a theater which shall not be named,
In a state that shall not be named.
a state that shall not.
Oh, it's Minnesota.
It was. Now, you know, it was a big musical. It was a big production. I had a big role, so there were elements of it that were fun. And
You know, people are going to go on your bio and they're starting narrowing it down. Like,
they're gonna
oh,
try
I
and-
know.
They're going to try and figure it out. So I've appreciated that not everything I have to do all the time when it comes to art and acting has always got to be missional. I had to kind of, for a time, get out of that mindset and just learn to enjoy myself. But I was also very particular about what I was doing. And in this particular play, there was a kissing scene. And we had never really had the conversation. I did not know the actress at the time, and her friend was the director, and they were kind of friends. And they had another friend who was another cast member, and so it was like these three gals. And we did not talk about that moment. There's like a wedding scene at the end. And we were just sort of like staging it. We weren't practicing, rehearsing, we weren't doing lines. We were just kind of seeing where everybody was going to line up. And then the director sort of flippantly said, okay, and this is where you guys kiss. And the actress just grabbed me and kissed me. Now, she didn't do anything wrong, per se. In her mind, certainly. So it's nothing like, it just caught me off guard. And I just kind of kept my mouth shut and turned my head a little bit. And the director remarked later, because this would happen like night after night, she's like, you look uncomfortable. I said, oh, that's because I don't kiss on the mouth. I have a strict no kissing on the mouth rule. My wife's had 4 C-sections. She doesn't need me gone at the night. Like, oh, it's just an actress. It doesn't mean anything. Like, that's ridiculous. How can I ever pay somebody back for bringing my children into the world, let alone through his C-section, which she has to have because she has this medical condition where she'll die if she doesn't. So I just have a no kissing rule. There's more to it than that, but it blew up.
Huh.
Like, it blew up. And I won't get into the rest of the story because I want to try and be charitable as I can. But I came from that, to the Catholic Young Adults musical.
To, hey, we're having mass today, and then cast dinner.
It was...
Tell us how you got to know Jesus. What's the Lord doing in your life?
That's exactly what it was. And
Rather than, hey, we're going out to get drunk tonight after the party.
correct.
Hey, who wants-"
Oh, then that happened. There's a whole other story I won't tell on this podcast.
Yeah,
lest
we don't.
somebody hear it.
But that's the point is like
So different.
The arts world is largely worldly.
Yep.
And pagan in
Yep.
the real meaning of that word.
And how do we get there is what's so mind-blowing to me because those experiences were so polar opposite. But I'm reading a book by Gregory Wolfe right now called Beauty Will Save the World, which, of course, is a quote from Dostoevsky. And he's addressing the Christian artist in the world today and that some of the challenges, of course, one of them being we're no longer in Christendom. So the imagery that Christians could use in their art, in their paintings, in their music was sort of universally understood. But now it's not at all. And we're having to find kind of other ways to communicate transcendent truth without using kind of the standard imagery and engage the culture. And it's a tremendous challenge. to do that in a culture that is no longer primarily Christian, or is really post-Christian, might be the better word, what we call, you and I call the apostolic age that we're in right now. And I'm halfway through. I don't know if he answers that question. He's sort of posing it right now, what some of the problems are. It was very fascinating to me because I couldn't quite put my finger on the problem. Pain, to me, is an avenue to use art to address God through the culture, because it is something that we all understand. And that had been, even before my becoming Catholic, had been my main avenue when I would go into prisons and bring music into prisons. I would address pain first because it's such a great barrier. How do you talk to somebody and tell them God loves them when maybe they've had really bad things happen to them? They can't reconcile those things or see God as a loving Father. So for me, at least at this point, pain is a great way to address that. And of course, your play, The Catholic Young Adults, there were people struggling with pain and painful things, and working it out with faith and working it out in the church. And of course, Moonshine Abbey is the next one that we're doing here. Rehearsals just started this week, but I'm in rehearsals for another original Catholic play at another theater, Frassati at Open Window Theater. We're doing a play. It was written by Jeremy Stanbury. He's a good friend of mine.
Yeah, and by the time this airs, that'll be going.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
you can buy tickets if you're listening.
Yeah.
And you live in Minnesota.
So we're in this play now, and it just kind of, my worlds are crossing in such a beautiful way of experiencing two different plays by two Catholic writers, very different plays, but both addressing sort of these transcendent truths through something really beautiful. And that to me is was all I ever wanted. I mean, I have it now, but being in the moment and experiencing it is it's hard for me to put words on.
And I think this comes back to what we were talking about a minute ago, the incarnational nature of art, Christian art. And right now, you are playing a character, but you're playing a character who is a real person.
Correct.
And that was
Pier Giorgio Frassati.
Blessed Pier Giorgio Frassati. I mean, tell us a little bit about that. It's what's that like to I mean, you've played all sorts of characters and actors and things in different plays and things, but what's it like to put on this really holy man?
Oh, it's super intimidating, number one, because he lived such a full life, before he died at 24. For those of you that are unfamiliar with Blessed Pier Giorgio Frassati, he died in 1925 at the ripe old age of 24. Mm-hmm. And his life would have gone largely unnoticed had it not been for the throngs of people that came out of the slums of Turin, Italy for his funeral. He had come from a really wealthy family. I would say irreligious, although I think his parents did attend Mass from time to time. But Pier Giorgio was loved Jesus, really, even when he was a little kid, really loved Jesus. And he was just greatly misunderstood. One of the marks of saints is they're just greatly misunderstood. And that's been a very hard thing for me to accept in my life the last couple of years, is being misunderstood. I really hate being misunderstood. Mm-hmm. And so watching a guy who was so greatly misunderstood handle it with such grace and kindness, because he was hiding all of his charitable works. He was in school. He was going to maybe work for his dad. He was going to get this engineering degree. And he was doing all of these things to sort of help please and honor his parents, which is important. With all his free time, what little he had, he would just spend in the slums bringing people medications, giving people money, giving people food and jackets, whatever he could give away, he could give away. And by the time he died at 24, so this is when polio was sort of sweeping through Italy, and he caught polio at an aggressive form. Polio affected mostly children, which was what was so awful about polio. And polio affected your nerves until you were paralyzed and couldn't breathe, and then you would die of asphyxiation. I mean, a horrible, horrible pandemic. And there he is, out in the slums, no gloves, no mask, just helping.
Right.
And he likely caught polio there in the slums of Turin. And it was so aggressive, he was dead within 5 days.
Wow.
And his funeral, his parents totally unexpecting anything extraordinary. 5,000-6,000 people just descend on this funeral. And his dad would remark to his mother that day that we never really knew our son.
Yeah, right.
So playing a historical character who we don't have any recordings of him speaking. We just have pictures. And man, he's got this big, just electric smile.
Yeah.
And you can really see his
that's the fun thing
personality.
about like new saints who like, wow, that's actually what he looked
Yeah,
like.
you
He's
got to see
the real person.
Because we don't. I mean, if you maybe you're lucky with like a saint from the 1200s that somebody did like a portrait of them,
Right.
and you got like a
Those
rough
are only really
idea.
important, prelates or bishops or
Yeah, yeah, right. But we don't know what they look like. So we have these pictures of this guy, and there's 2 books. His sister wrote 2 books, beautiful books. So the script was, Jeremy used a lot of it. A lot of Pier Giorgio's own letters make an appearance in the place, his own words. And then we happen to have 2 great connections to the Frassatis through Father Spencer Howe and Father Clegan? I can't remember. I think it's Klugen or Clegan, who know his niece.
Oh, wow.
And has spent time over there, like in that town, getting to know her. I think his sister, Luciana, lived till 102. So she only died very recently.
Yeah.
Like very recently. And so we have all this information about him, from Luciana, his sister, who was very close to him. So you're getting an extremely historically accurate, play with a lot of his words interspersed in there. So for me as an actor, if you just take all the spirituality out of it, it's a great challenge to try and embody somebody and honor such a great person. But it's been extremely contemplative for me, like walking through his life. And I remember I was having a difficult conversation with a relative just a couple of days ago over text. And all of a sudden I was like, I should use this little Pier Giorgio phrase here because I think it would help soften the situation. And it worked.
Oh.
It was so beautiful. So I'm learning, in a small way.
And that's the beautiful thing too. Like you're kind of bringing Pier Giorgio back to life.
Correct.
Incarnational, right? And so like the people who come to see it, the idea is that they're not seeing Jeremy Darling and these other actors. They're seeing Pier Giorgio and
Right. How do I get out of the way?
Yeah.
How do I get Jeremy out of the way and let him come out?
And the beautiful thing with any art or story is like, yeah, it can have meaning, it can be beautiful, it can move us. But in this case, I mean, the bonus is, oh hey, and by the way, you can be friends with Pier Giorgio if you want to.
Yeah.
Not Jeremy Darling. I mean,
Yeah.
you can be friends with him too if you want.
Both of us. But his prayers are
Pier
way more
Giorgio
effective than
yeah, right. Pier Giorgio's way cooler too.
And that was, when we talk about beauty, finding ancient beauty has been such a great part of my journey into the Catholic Church because, of course, God sits outside of time.
Mm-hmm.
And so stepping into that flow of time was like getting hit by a powerful ray of sun because I can turn around and go backwards, but still going forwards and meet all these saints. I can walk back and meet Pope St. John Paul the Great. I can walk back and meet Mother Teresa. I can walk back and meet Blessed Pier Giorgio. And I just have been making my way further and further into the past, making these friends who are more alive than I am, more in communion with God than I am, and can intercede for me in such a special way. And we've seen that happen in this play, his intercession in a very special way with just unbelievable connections. Father Spencer Howe came and sat down just to regale us with some stories one night. And Father Howe, he can unplan, he can give a homily sort of unplanned, and he really did that night. He was like, he got through this long story, we're all like crying. And he was like, I'm sorry if my thoughts are jumbled. I didn't really have anything planned. And we were all like, are you kidding me? But to have such an unbelievable connection, and now we have a second-class relic. We have some of his bed sheet from the bed he died in.
Oh, yeah.
They're keeping us company and reminding us of why we're doing it. I mean, it's a profound experience. Second play in a row there at Open Window Theater. We just did one on Pope St. John Paul the Great, which you can stream online. We're doing the same thing. We're doing another really innovative virtual recording, immersive virtual recording, so this will live on. I just don't think there's a better way to honor saints than through either a film or through a play, to bring them to life in that way. Certainly a painting or a song is a great way, but they really come to life through the art of acting and drama in a way that is really, really, really profound. So it's been a blast, and it's already changed my life, and we're really excited to see what God would do with this play and with then jumping right into Moonshine Abbey.
Yeah, which doesn't sound at first glance as like, oh yeah, that sounds like a real Catholic sort of
That's what I
thing.
love, though. Catholics are wonderfully self-deprecating. This is what I didn't find a lot of in the world I came from, is they're willing to poke fun at themselves. But in the midst of all that, you have a great way, Father, of writing plays that have this great humor, this sort of great self-deprecating humor, and then like an arrow right to the
Yeah.
right to the heart.
Sucker, I suckered you right in.
This is probably a random comparison, but it's important. That to me is what makes Dave Chappelle such a great entertainer. Now, I don't agree with his use of foul language or laugh at all of his jokes, but he has a
Ever
great
Ancient,
way.
Ever New does not condone all the things that we say on this podcast.
Yes. But
And I don't even know what he's talking about, so this is all Jeremy right now.
okay. But he has an unbelievable. His dad was a philosophy professor, and nobody really knows where he stands politically. He's kind of kept that very veiled. But he did a stand-up called Sticks and Stones, and again, I'm not saying anyone should go out and watch it because there's some pretty foul language and a few jokes I did not laugh at. But he has a profound way of setting you up.
He's a new Catholic, guys. You don't take him too seriously.
He has a way of setting you up with what you think is going to be the joke, and then he brings it down real serious and gives you this very powerful philosophical point. And it reminded me, at least, of your writing and kind of your style without all the filth and some of the godless elements.
See, again, like this is what we can do as Christians in the art. It's like art that we can just go and enjoy. And yeah, Moonshine Abbey, it's a musical about monks making hooch during Prohibition.
So awesome.
But if that's all it was, obviously like these monks, Prohibition becomes the fire that's set underneath them that gets them angry at something and then gets them back into doing what they're supposed to be doing and the life they're supposed to be living. So there's redemption. I think this is probably a word that throw in like art, Catholic art. There's always redemption.
Redemptive art
always has something to do with Jesus, who is the Redeemer.
Yeah, that's the Open Window Theater's motto, is redemptive art. You'll hear that from Jeremy Stanbury a lot. I never understood that term. Never heard that term until it came out of his mouth. And I remember the first time he said it, I wasn't Catholic at the time, and I was like, wow, that is a powerful, redemptive art.
Yeah, I mean, when did you see a movie and you're like, Fast and the Furious 10, that was really redemptive.
Yeah, no, it's not a lot,
No.
but you know them when you see them.
Yeah.
You know them when you see them, and there's certainly, probably not as much today, but you could look back through some of the older great films, and this line of like the underdog story and wanting the person who's struggling to find hope and all of those things kind of hidden. I always hated movies that, a good example is No Country for Old Men. I was like, it's got one of the greatest villains ever. Javier Bardem plays this really creepy villain. But the ending was so disappointing.
Yeah.
It was anti-redemptive. I won't spoil it for anyone who hasn't seen it.
And that's part of the modern worldview, is that actually there's no redemption.
It's nihilism,
There's
total
no
nihilism.
meaning. Yeah, we're just, bad things happen and we don't know why, and so we get on with it or get even.
Yeah, there's nothing beautiful about that.
Yeah.
Nothing beautiful.
But if I can say just a word about like the process, the theatrical process for me as a writer, is so beautiful, and I experienced this so much every time I've done. I mean, I've produced half dozen plays that I've written. I think I saw it the most in the last play when we did CYA. It started this idea that I didn't even have the idea. Somebody else had the idea. Mary Schaefer, she had the idea. She said, "Father, you have to write this play." And so this idea was kind of like planted in my head, and it started to grow, and I started to think about it, and I said, okay. And so then I started to write something down on paper, and then eventually I had a whole script. But it's just words on paper, It's just there's nothing. Nobody's ever going to see it, and even to read it, it's like, okay, let's but it really needs to come
Yes,
alive.
yes.
And so the first time we had a read through of it, even before it was done, it was like, "Ooh, yeah, this is coming alive." And then we added the actors and had them start to act it out on stage, and it's coming more alive. And then we add costumes and props to that, and music and lights, and it's even more alive. And it's this incarnational process of something that started with this tiny little seed. And what I love about that is that, yeah, it was an idea that now has life.
Yeah.
And the other part that I love about that is that it wasn't just me.
Right.
You know, it's like I did the writing. I had people who read and gave me criticism and feedback and comments and corrections. But even that, like, okay, here's the script, and it's mostly, something that I did. But then you got up there and you took those lines and you read them in a certain way and you put your own nuance to them. And then Mary Schaefer, the director, she said, okay, we're going to do this and stand there. And then the lights and all of those pieces came together to make the show. And it's unclear as to which ones, like, well, could you have done it without, this or without that? Well, maybe.
Yeah.
But really, the whole thing, and to me, it's this beautiful image of the body of Christ, right?
Oh, wow.
And this is what St. Paul talks about. The hand doesn't get to say to the foot, hey, I don't need you.
Right.
No, that's an odd sort of body if it doesn't have, an arm or an eye or things
The
it's
foot
supposed
left.
to have.
The foot's done.
Yeah. And so this whole process, it required everybody from the writer to the composer, to the choreographer, to the director, and to the actors, to the technical people, to the set builder, to the
Marketing.
on
like, and on.
Yeah, because even that, it's like, okay, we got to play, but
People gotta come
nobody's here to
see
see it. Right? So all of it is involved, and at the end, I felt it was interesting. Like going to opening night, my feeling wasn't, I'm so proud of what I've done. It was like, I'm so blessed to have been part of this project.
Amen.
Like, I didn't feel like I was any more significant than, somebody in the ensemble or somebody who's backstage pulling curtains or filling fake beer glasses or, it's like...
It's a big ensemble cast.
Yeah, and it was just something
They were great.
so beautiful to be part of, and the part that I played, and that to me was like, yes, this is Christian theater.
Yeah.
It's incarnational in so many senses of that word, and we're part of something, and that's what the church is meant to be.
That's right.
We're all part of something. We're all doing something. We have our part to play. We know what that is, and we're going out to incarnate the beauty and love of Christ in the world.
Yeah, and when we do that together with the right spirit, then God goes ahead of us and blesses and allows great things to happen. Because I remember opening night, we were praying for 80 tickets, hoping like that was the number. Man, if we get 80. And we sold out a 450-seat auditorium for 6 shows, 7 shows, something like that.
6,
I mean, it was just beyond like our wildest dreams. And that to me, the essence of beauty is it has to be made. We cannot create ex nihilo. We can't create it out of nothing.
Right.
Something out of nothing. Only God can do that. But then he gives us this ability to create, and I had said this for years. If God gave you the ability to create, because some people, have different giftings. Art is created, and I this has been my mantra for years. If God gave you the ability to create, then create. Don't emulate. Innovate, and do something different of your own.
Yeah, and I think so much. I mean, like so many young people today. They're playing video games and they're on their phone, snapping each other, and all of these things. Like, and then or if they have a really really disciplined parents, they take away their phone. Their kids are like, oh, what do I do? I have nothing. It's like, learn to play the guitar.
Yes, you have so much time.
Get your kids some paint and brushes and, get them some woodwork. Find something, because we all have that gift, that innate gift. and desire and need to create.
Yeah.
And I look at the world, and that's what I see missing, is that there's not enough people who want to create beautiful things.
Yeah. Yeah, it's I think the devil's in all the details. When we look at the explosion of technology, the industrial revolution of the last really 100 years, it's unlike anything in history, and all it's done is take beauty and put it really in the back of our minds by design. So we want to bring beauty back. That's partly why we're doing this podcast.
Yeah.
And very excited for these.
Go out and do something beautiful. Make something beautiful.
Yeah, go now, because beauty matters. And
I would say I would end on this. Like, some people have asked me in seminary and as a priest, like, how do you have time to do theater on top of all your other stuff? And I say, actually have to. Like, there's something different about it. I feel like it's something the Lord has given me that I must do.
Amen.
You know, there's an
As
apostolate.
part of the work.
Yeah, it's an apostolate here. It's not like, oh yeah, that's my play. It's like, well, it is a play actually, but it's the thing that it's a gift. You know, like, I'm trying to give this to the world, to my community. But it just does something. It's like, it's recreation that's actually recreative.
Yes.
You know, I don't watch a lot of TV. I know you don't either, and so we have time to, like, do stuff
Plenty of time.
like that.
God gave us 24 hours in a day is just enough time.
Yeah. So stop wasting your time with podcasts, and except for this one.
Wait a second. Just let me edit that out.
I mean, if you're, like, painting right now, then that's okay.
Yes.
Like, keep painting while you listen to our podcast.
Maybe we inspired you. Go see the plays. We've got links in the description below for both of these great plays. If you're not a person that feels called to create, then support the creators. Buy good music and help artists make beautiful things. Another great episode. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next time.
Later.
At Catholic Order of Foresters, we're committed to bringing Catholic values to life and financially protecting Catholic families right here in Minnesota. Our members enjoy benefits like scholarship eligibility and peace of mind knowing their family is secure, even if something happens to them. Each year, thousands join us to support people in need through our Feeding God's Children events, spirituality tap-ins, and mission trips. Wouldn't you love to be a part of an organization that embodies your Catholic values? Find out how you can be a part of Catholic Order of Foresters by calling General Agent Brian Marketon at 763-658-4009. That's Brian at 763-658-4009.